So, it's finally here. After months and months of speculation, hype, discussion, trailers, articles, and so much controversy within the community, it makes Fate's localization look like a minor inconvenience. Fire Emblem Warriors has finally arrived. It's certainly been quite the experience seeing the #1 Fire Emblem spin-off I wanted become a reality, and after playing through the entire thing, there's a lot to be said about this game. Just like any video game, there are things Warriors does right, things it does wrong, features that shocked me, elements that failed to impress, aspects of the game I didn't even know I wanted but loved anyway, decisions that raised several questions. You get the idea. So I figured it would be best to share my thoughts on the game with all of you, as well as determine whether or not it's worth the investment. Plus, I think it'll be interesting to see how many of the hopes and predictions MaxHP and I had for this game came true. Speaking of which, Max, get your ass over here!
You called?
Whoa! Max, is that you? You look crisper and more HD than last time.
I figured it was time for an upgrade. I didn't want to be stuck at 250 by 250 pixels, if you know what I mean. Anyway, review time?
Yes, as you are no doubt aware, Fire Emblem Warriors is now on the market. So, are you ready for round 3?
Well, of course. After everything that's happened leading up to its release, playing through the entire thing, plus all the bonus content, I simply have to talk about this game.
Oh, I know how you feel. Though at this point, the mere mention of this game is going to spark quite a bit of tension. Oh my god, this roster is so shit, it's nothing but weird and trash! See what I mean?
Let them fill their tension gauge to the max, because it's gonna take a lot more than that to stop us, for our bonds are stronger. Yeah, can we reserve the cheesy transition lines for your parts?
But I like cheesy transition lines.
Before we get started with the game, I think it's best that we address the history surrounding it, because that was an experience of pure and utter chaos. January 2017, Nintendo unveiled the almighty Nintendo Switch and its roster of top-tier games, including Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey, Xenoblade 2, and of course, a teaser trailer for Fire Emblem Warriors. And thus, the hype train began to roll. So far, so good.
This type of crossover is something people were really looking forward to, especially Max and I. Heck, we even made a video hoping and predicting what would be featured within the game. Then Koei Tecmo started giving out more information, and it all went downhill from there. The first wrong move was announcing that the roster would be primarily Awakening, Fates, and Shadow Dragon, which to be honest, Max and I weren't too upset about, since we had a feeling this would happen, as from a business perspective, it's a no-brainer. And heck, we like those games, so we didn't lose sleep over the announcement. As for everyone else, not so much.
The next wrong move was the now infamous too many swords excuse they gave, which didn't even turn out to be true. Then there was the absolutely god-awful marketing that had little to no gameplay and pretty much only showed the story mode. Something both of us imagine most players don't care for in a Warriors game, and weren't expecting much to come of it.
Yet it still managed to suck.
Yeah, we'll get to that. And despite Lin and Celica patching things up a little bit, the first wave of DLC announcement, well, this is what the fanbase looked like. Yeah, this game's journey was a bit of a rough one, to put it mildly. And while we feel some of the bad reception is a classic case of fan overreaction, in some ways Koei only have themselves to blame, since they did a terrible job advertising this game and not showing off what made this crossover so unique to begin with, like new classes, strategy elements, and history mode. Thankfully, things got better closer down the line, but by then the damage had already been done. I swear this game desperately needed a Nintendo Direct. Regardless, Fire Emblem Warriors is here, but what exactly does it have to offer?
Now Max and I have a good feeling as to what everyone is intrigued to know first, that being our thoughts regarding the roster. Now personally, neither of us hate the roster. Having Awakening, Fates, and Shadow Dragon be the 3 main representatives isn't a problem in our opinion, since it just makes the most sense in regards to popularity. There's no two ways about it. And for what it's worth, you have access to a whopping 22 characters just from clearing the story mode, which is pretty substantial. However, we can't ignore the fact that having only 5 games being represented is pretty miserable considering the history of the franchise. And while I wasn't expecting to see Genealogy or Sacred Stones from day one, no Tellius series or Binding Blade for that matter is BS if you ask me.
What makes matters worse is the clear amount of favoritism towards specific games. In this case, Fates, since that game gets 9 characters, Awakening gets 6, and Shadow Dragon only gets 3, despite being, the origin of Fire Emblem. Plus, Blazing Sword and Echoes only get 1 rep, both of which have no part in the story and were probably included last minute as a form of damage control.
As for the characters that got chosen, while the most famous faces from each game are present and accounted for, mostly, The entire cast is far too vanilla for my tastes, as no one in the roster was a surprise to see or I simply didn't expect, which is rather odd as the other Warriors crossovers usually include some of the more obscure and unexpected characters. Here, that's not the case, and to be frank, did we really need Elise and Sakura? Honestly, you could have ditched those two and swapped them out for Shadow Dragon, Blazing Sword, or Echo's reps. Or at the very least, if you're going to stick to Fates, then I think Kaze/Felicia, Nyx, and Rinka would work as a way of representing all three paths and units that play differently from everyone else.
Bottom line, while we don't think the roster's overall bad, we'd be hard-pressed to call it good either. But anyway, let's get into the meat of things. Once you start the game and choose your difficulty options, you're thrown straight into the story with our new protagonists, Rowan and Liana, the prince and princess of Atolis, who are just going about their business with their friend Darius, when suddenly Outrealm portals start opening up in the sky, and the kingdom is attacked by some of the most generic enemies in video game history.
No, seriously, they make the dark guy from Sonic Unleashed look like Miyazaki levels of creative, but I digress. During their escape, they get cut off from their mother and must use the Shield of Flames to save the kingdom and defeat the Chaos Dragon, which they do by recruiting the heroes of Fire Emblem spread across time that have manifested in their world. What's that? You think the story sounds like an abridged version of Awakening and you can already predict everything that's going to happen? Well, guess what? You're correct. No joke here, people. This has to be one of the most by-the-numbers, bare bones, and uninspired narratives to ever be associated with Fire Emblem. It's still better than Fate's story. Yup.
No, it's funny you say that, because it isn't.
Holy shit, it really isn't.
Now, granted, going into this game, we're not expecting anything special as Warriors games aren't known for their stories. But this is just so uninteresting and straight edge that it was otherwise impossible for us to get invested in it. And it's used as more of an excuse for classic Fire Emblem characters to interact with new protagonists, rather than tell an interesting narrative. Which would be fine, but the problem is, these new characters,
They suck.
Yeah, they really do.
Okay, to be fair, they're not awful, aside from their designs, but they're just so bland and cliched that there really isn't much to like about them. I mean, even some of the worst Fire Emblem lords had their moments or hidden potential, and even they don't compare to these bottom-of-the-barrel basement dwellers. Heck, I prefer Corrin over these two.
Wow, dude, I didn't think you could find anyone worse than Corrin. How do you do that?
I didn't either, and it pains me to say that. Now granted, Liana isn't too bad. She's nice, rather sweet, and has a pure heart. Nothing we haven't seen before, but she didn't do anything to get under my skin. Rowan, on the other hand...
I'm gonna be Atolis' most powerful knight!
How does one describe the piece of bread that is Rowan? Well, he's basically what you get if you take the most basic of shonen protagonists, but remove everything likable about them and only left the annoying part. I'm serious, people. This guy makes Asta look like Edward Elric in comparison, and every time he opens his mouth, I just want to say, shut up, Rowan. I did it plenty of times during the livestream.
As of now, the story and new characters aren't doing much, but the familiar Fire Emblem faces are what we feel to be the saving grace of this plot. Why? Because what Fire Emblem Warriors does wonderfully is bring out the best in everyone. Throughout the campaign, primarily during their support, the game puts a significant emphasis on the best aspects of each character, and goes out of its way to make them even more likable than they already were.
Plus, when they converse with other heroes from different parts of the Fire Emblem universe, that's when I feel they're at their best, and it's an absolute treat for fans of all three games. Some of my favourites being Sakura, Lissa, Frederick, Shida, Owain, of course, and the character who I think stole the show, Camilla. No joke, people. Warriors Camilla is, in my opinion, the best version of Camilla to date, as the game focuses more on her sadistic, yet at the same time seductive and motherly side, and make her out to be far more entertaining and badass than usual. Heck, they even sexualize her less than Fates did. Yeah, you heard me, a game made by Koei Tecmo and Team Ninja has less fan service than the game made by Nintendo. Max, what parallel universe have we stepped into?
The same one where full-price games have microtransactions and gacha mechanics, Jared Leto plays the Joker, Jake Paul and Viners rule the YouTube landscape, and Donald Trump is President of the United States.
Can we not live on this planet anymore?
The point is, though the old characters are at their prime, the story and newcomers aren't much to talk about. But what about the gameplay, since that's the reason we play these games in the first place? Fire Emblem Warriors is essentially a Dynasty Warriors game that mixes in Fire Emblem elements, so the tried and true series formula of capturing bases and mowing down thousands of enemies with incredibly over-the-top flashy combat remains intact. So if you've played Hyrule Warriors or any other Warriors game, you'll feel right at home. However, there are quite a few unique details and additions that incorporate aspects of Fire Emblem gameplay into the action, and honest to God, it turned out way better than I thought it would.
First and foremost, there's the weapon triangle, where depending on the weapon you wield, you'll have an advantage or disadvantage against your opponent. While you don't need to use specific weapons to beat enemies, the time it takes to defeat them differs massively when using the right or wrong equipment. So unless you enjoy hacking away at the same enemy for 10 minutes rather than 10 seconds, be sure to use the correct units against corresponding foes, which helps to encourage the player to utilize multiple characters, as well as keep things very fast paced and energetic if you play smart.
In addition, the game allows you to deploy an average of up to 4 playable characters per map, which you can switch between and give orders to via the pause menu, which we found ourselves doing a lot actually, as it was a wonderful way to get multiple objectives cleared at once, as well as constantly keeping the player in the action when switching to another character and fighting whoever's in their vicinity. Seriously, switching characters is something I wanted in Hyrule Warriors so badly. I know that Legends had it, but damn it, is it really hard to port that to the Wii U version? Anyway. Adding to that, there's things like pairing up for attack and defense bonuses, healing enemies with staves, certain weapons being super effective against certain classes. Truthfully, there's so much attention to detail in regards to the Fire Emblem formula. I'm surprised it all came together so well, as these mechanics combine to make what I feel to be one of the most fast-paced and action-packed Warriors games, with a surprisingly strategic edge to it. And I rarely found myself getting exhausted with this game as much as other Musou titles, as levels didn't last as long and I never had to worry about traveling halfway across the map just to seize a fort.
With that said, while I do appreciate the smaller and more straightforward levels, I never felt that rush or sense of achievement I got from other Warriors titles after taking down thousands of foes and clearing a large multitude of objectives across giant maps, since to me, as soon as the level starts, it's over just as quickly, which may not bode well for people more interested in Dynasty Warriors than Fire Emblem. On top of that, I think the level design is overall rather bland, as I thought the maps were very forgettable, and most objectives are simply kill every enemy and seize the forts, which feels like a step back from what the series has been able to provide previously. Plus, the game likes to reuse levels a lot during the campaign, though sometimes they bring in more interesting elements like rescuing villagers or activating Dragon Veins, which works, don't get me wrong, but overall makes for what I feel to be small bursts of fun, rather than really grand epic battles that give me astronomical levels of excitement.
This does feel like a bit of a missed opportunity, as the ability to switch between and command units along with how the weapon triangle works, I figured could have made some truly great missions that involved managing a multitude of characters to complete a large assortment of different objectives, just like a Fire Emblem game. But for what it's worth, I think they did an overall good job, and it really did feel like I'm playing a Fire Emblem Warriors game and not just a Dynasty Warriors with a Fire Emblem skin. Plus, the shorter and more condensed levels I feel are better designed for on-the-go gameplay, which is what the Switch and 3DS are all about.
By far, one of my favourite aspects of this game is the combat, as naturally it's unbelievably fun and an absolute delight to experience. But the amount of care and detail that went into each character's moveset is amazing. Well, most of them, as the game integrates each unit's specific fighting style and iconic attacks into their string of combos, and it really helps to make everyone feel both unique and genuine. Plus, seeing them fight like this is just amazing. Tiki looks just so adorable, and Corrin has clearly been playing a lot of Smash Bros. Plus, just look at what Lissa can do. This is what Max and I like to call fucking hardcore!
Speaking of hardcore, check out the Crown Prince Xander. One thing I need to point out is that there are clone characters in this game that share mostly the same moveset minus special attacks. Rowan and Liana are prime examples, though this makes sense since you choose one to follow primarily at the beginning of the game. And then there's the 3 Pegasus Knights, the archers Takumi, Sakura, and Anna, as well as Elise and Leo, and Chrom and Lucina. This might be seen as a negative to some, but to be fair, we did suggest a similar outcome in our predictions video, and I feel the game would never have worked without clones, as that's kind of what Fire Emblem's class system essentially is, but hey, that's just me.
Also, just a quick heads up, controlling mounted units in this game is a little odd at first, but we quickly got the hang of it. Though funny enough, while the Pegasus Knights and Frederick gave me trouble starting out, I never once had a problem with Elise, Leo, Camilla, and Xander. I guess my love of conquest rubbed off on these 4.
Speaking of love, can I just say, the game looks phenomenal? Dynasty Warriors games have always had a reputation for gorgeous graphics, and this one is no exception. Seeing the Fire Emblem cast in full HD is just blissful. Sadly, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, since though the characters look great with the exception of the Lemon Twins, I cannot say the same for the environment, as I found most of them to be very bleak and generic, along with lacking any real charm or identity, as well as some questionable textures, see rock.jpg.
Now this problem doesn't apply to the locations that are ripped straight from the games, and by that I mean 1, the World Tree, as every other area in this game is at best loosely based on Fire Emblem landmarks, which I feel is a huge missed opportunity, as it would have been amazing to see classic maps in HD like Midmire, Grimmer's Altar, Walhart's Castle, Fort Ferox, Castle Krakenberg, the Hoshido Capital, the Vale Kingdom, the Bottomless Canyon, Mass Escape from the Castle, the Sand Oasis, you get the idea. I mean, I know they wouldn't be able to recreate every area from these games, but come on Koei, when life gives you lemons, am I right?
Well, at the very least, they did good in the audio department, as the soundtrack for this game is simply brilliant, but I'd expect no less from these guys given their track record. Fire Emblem Warriors delivers some beautiful remixes to the scores for all three games, and despite the more metal approach, some of the quieter pieces still retain the same sense of serenity and calmness, despite the overall shift in tone, so I've gotta give compliments to Koei on that one.
So do I in regards to voice acting, because my god, I thought it was fantastic. With the exceptions of Rowan and Hinoka, mostly everyone here sounds great and the delivery is spot on. Not to mention the entire story mode, in-game shoutouts and support conversations are fully voice acted too, making the characters seem just so lively and genuine.
Especially Camilla, I swear to god she sounds like she's going to orgasm every time she speaks.
To be fair, with a body like that, I don't blame her.
One thing that got a bit grating is that every time you do anything in the menu, the characters have a line which got really repetitive.
This okay? That actually went well. 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 That actually went well.
Rounding things out, we have History Mode, which at a glance looks like this game's answer to Hyrule Warriors Adventure Mode, and to an extent it is. But that's certainly not a bad thing. In this mode, you tackle classic Fire Emblem maps like Invisible Ties and The Path is Yours, where you take on various different challenges to unlock extra materials, new characters, etc, etc. We both consider this to be the best mode in terms of gameplay, especially if you're a Fire Emblem fan, as the maps are just oozing with charm and there's a real challenge with tons of strategy, as often each enemy encounter has specific objectives like defeating a certain amount of enemies before time runs out, gauntlets, and so on, as well as specific restrictions like Axe units only or Awakening units only, making it far more interesting than the story mission in my opinion, in a fantastic way for the player to make use of everyone in the game. Plus, you tend to get much better rewards for completing them, though I will say you'll need to bring your A game with each character for some of the later maps. Plus, there's a lot less filler than Hyrule Warriors Adventure Mode, which ties nicely into the upgrade system.
This is nothing new to Warriors since every game uses some sort of level up system, but here I think it's better implemented due to the game being designed around using multiple units, so naturally you'd want to make them all as strong as possible, especially when you take into consideration the ability to promote every hero into an advanced unit, which may not sound amazing since you can do this in every Fire Emblem game. But really think about it, you can upgrade every hero, even the advanced ones, which means Leo can become a Dark Crusader, Frederick can become a Guardian Knight, and Camilla can become a Malig Master, complete with a much better character design. And I love these new 30 units so much that if they're not in Fire Emblem Switch, I will shoot Faye in the face!
Hey, come on dude, there's no need to go overboard.
Max, my frustration will have to go out on someone, and I can only stomach her obsession for so long.
And somehow you're okay with Camilla's core obsession.
Because it's not tied to everything she does. Her Kaze support is one example of this.
Last but not least, there's the obvious DLC coming in the near future, since that's now a requirement for the Warrior series. And while many people are royally pissed that it's still just the 3 games, I don't think it's that bad. Since for one, more History Mode maps is an automatic plus. 2, we're getting the likes of Azura, Tharja, Olivia, Minerva, and Lind, which we're down with. And 3, I think $20 is a pretty decent price for the season pass. Though, I will say that having the NPCs already in base game be locked off as DLC is a pretty scummy practice. Bad move, Koei.
4. Consider the fact that this is merely the first wave of DLC, as games like Hyrule Warriors got a shit ton of bonus content over its lifespan, so Fire Emblem Warriors could be the same situation, though if the next wave of DLC is still just those 3 games and none of the older titles, or even Blazing Sword or Echoes fail to be featured, that's where I officially draw the line.
Well, that's pretty much everything the game has to offer. And what do we think overall? To be perfectly honest, this game turned out pretty great. I mean, we weren't one of those people who were like,
this roster is awful, therefore the entire game is terrible, even though I haven't played it yet and can't make a fair judgment.
But going in, I wasn't expecting anything tremendous. Just a fun Warriors game with Fire Emblem thrown in. Yet it turned out to be quite the pleasant surprise.
Aside from being good old Warriors hack and slash fun, the character movesets are amazing, the cast is at its best, the supports are superb, the voice acting is mostly on point, the way it fuses Warriors gameplay with Fire Emblem mechanics is almost too good to be true, it has stunning graphics, masterful music, the holy grail that is History Mode, and so on, making this one of the stronger Warriors crossovers I've played. But it is far from perfect. The game, while more streamlined, fast-paced and better suited to a handheld, has overall boring level design and maps that are visually dull and far too small.
The roster, while not nearly as bad as people make it out to be, is still far too limited and overall underwhelming, with a clear sense of favoritism. The story, even for this type of spin-off, is dismal at best. The new leads are the lowest of lords, and there are undeniably semblances of missed opportunities and poor design choices.
So in summary, all the extra features and small details are fantastic, but the main bulk of the game is simply good. Not bad, not amazing by any means, just good.
It's funny, you said the exact same thing about Echoes.
So I did. That's certainly quite the coincidence. But on the whole, Max and I had a great time with this game. But is it something we can recommend to all of you?
That boils down to which type of person you are. But let's make one thing clear. If you didn't like Dynasty Warriors, haven't enjoyed any of the crossovers, and even Hyrule Warriors didn't do it for you, then you're not going to like this game. Don't even bother, I can tell you that straight up.
Now, if you're someone who just likes to play video games but doesn't really know anything about Fire Emblem or Dynasty Warriors, then while I imagine Mario Odyssey will be the one game to get this holiday season, Fire Emblem Warriors is also a good choice. It's simple, mindless fun just about anyone can enjoy and is designed in a way that suits on-the-go gameplay.
If you're a Fire Emblem fan but don't play Dynasty Warriors, then I would still certainly recommend this game. Even with a wafer-thin roster, there's still so much Fire Emblem love crammed into this cartridge, and features just about anyone who enjoys the series can appreciate and admire. More so if you're someone who mainly plays Awakening and Faith, then this is certainly a must-buy for you.
If you're a Dynasty Warriors fan but have no interest in Fire Emblem, then personally, I would not recommend this game to you. The campaign and levels may feel watered down, and I imagine long-term Musou players won't care for the more simplified approach, though History Mode may help to alleviate that.
If you're a fan of both series, then you probably have already bought this and don't need to be watching this video. Good for you. And then there's the last group of people. The people who are turned off from buying the game purely based on the roster.
If you're not interested in Fire Emblem Warriors just because of who's playable and who isn't, I will not blame you for it, since while we think the general opinion towards the cast is far too negative, the roster is most certainly a low point of this game and we have many issues with it, especially since I can't play as a large chunk of my favourite Fire Emblem characters, as well as some obvious choices who for some reason aren't there. I mean, really developers? No Ike? Are you fucking serious?
But if that's the only reason you won't play the game, well, to be honest, I think you're really missing out on something great. There's a lot to love about this game, and it really does highlight some of the best aspects of Fire Emblem. Not to mention there's far more to the game than just playing Dynasty Warriors as your favorite Fire Emblem characters. So personally I think you should at least give the game a chance. If you still don't like it after playing it, that's perfectly understandable, but you might be pleasantly surprised.
You know, Fire Emblem Warriors has been quite the experience for both of us. From the moment I pitched the idea when I hit 5,000 subs, to this game's official announcement, the predictions video we made, all the news leading up to its release, the podcast Max did, and now finally being able to play the game, it's been a very wild ride, and I'm grateful to be riding that train from the beginning.
There were a few bumps on the road, and it's not the exact game we wanted, but what I got was a Fire Emblem spinoff with just as much love and care put into it as any other game in the series.
We've wanted this game for God knows how long, and on the whole, it exceeded most of my expectations, so while not perfect or my favourite Warriors game, it's still a Fire Emblem game I'm proud to have in my collection.
I too am proud to own this, and you know what the best part is? Most of the issues we have can be fixed simply by giving us more characters, more iconic stages, bigger maps, all that stuff. So hopefully DLC or even a sequel can make up for its shortcomings. But as it stands, I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10.
It may have fallen flat in some areas, but it quickly picked itself up in others, and from beginning to end, it is a great time. Thank you everyone for watching this video. I hope you had a great time and enjoyed the review. Huge thank you to MaxHP, it's been wonderful working with him once again, and don't forget to check out his channel, he makes some brilliant Fire Emblem videos. If you enjoyed this video, why not give our predictions video a watch and see just how differently Warriors turned out in the end, and be sure to hit that like button and subscribe as well. Anyway, that's it from me, I'll see you all next time.